My name is Avalini Thaler. On the morning I turned 18, I woke up to a quiet house. It was the kind of quiet that felt heavy, like a Saturday morning in Indiana when nobody is awake yet. The clock said 6:31 a.m. and everything was completely still. The house didn't make a single sound. There were no balloons taped to the stairs like for birthdays. No off-key singing of "Happy Birthday" from my sister Zephra, which I secretly liked even when it was terrible. There was no smell of Dad's half-burnt pancakes, which he sometimes cooked and acted like he cared. There was just the cold, hard wooden floor under my bare feet. I walked into the kitchen. On the counter there was a sticky note. It said, "Attorney Brooks. Back late. Stay quiet." My phone buzzed. Zephyr sent me a text from her number. "We're handling something important today. Just relax, sis." I didn't wait for anything else. I went straight to my dad's office. A photocopy of some papers was half hidden under a stack of folders. I picked it up carefully and flipped to the last page. My name, Avalini Thaler, was crossed out in thick red letters. Below my name in Dad's handwriting, everything was divided equally between Soline Thaler and Zephra Thaler. My heart didn't race. It didn't skip a beat. It just went completely still, like someone had turned off the switch to my emotions and replaced it with ice. I brewed a cup of black coffee, opened my MacBook, and logged into the trust portal that Grandma Marceline had set up for me years ago. The screen lit up green and said, "Avalini Thaler, sole beneficiary and trustee. Authority effective today." I pressed the call button on my phone. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," said Alaric Thorne's voice on the other end. "I'm selling the house," I said, calm and steady. "Wire transfer within 12 hours. Can you make that happen?" There was a short silence on the other side of the line. Then he said, "Your grandmother made that rule for exactly this moment. I'm already pulling the files for you." I ended the call and immediately dialed Kaylin Drax, the investor who had been trying to buy the house for a low price ever since I was 16. "Do you still want the house in Pfizer's?" I asked. "Name your price. Cash wire transfer. Close today." Before I continue further, don't forget to subscribe and join the awesome community. Drop a comment below to tell me where you're watching from and what you think of the story. To explain why I felt nothing but cold clarity that morning, I need to go back 17 years. My real mom died when I was only 11 months old. She had stage 4 breast cancer and it was diagnosed too late to do anything. Dad carried me through the cemetery in his arms, tears soaking my blanket, and he swore that no one could ever take her place. 11 months later he brought Soline home. He said, "This is your new mommy now." I am still learning to walk too. Soline was already pregnant. Zephyr was born the week I turned 2. Suddenly, I became the responsible big sister even though I still drank from a sippy cup. Soline's favorite line became, "Big girls let their little sisters go first." So I always went second. Always. No matter what. Grandma Marceline watched everything carefully. She saw Dad coming to her every few months, crying about how he was providing for his 2 daughters. She saw me being pushed aside, always helping, always giving. When I was 10, Grandma Marceline took me to Alaric Thorne's office downtown. We spent 3 hours signing an irrevocable family trust. She put the 5-bedroom house on 116th Street, her bank accounts and everything she owned into it. Then she added the most important rule. On my 18th birthday, I would become the only person in charge of the trust. I could sell anything in it, transfer it, or do whatever I wanted without asking anyone else for permission. Grandma squeezed my hand and whispered, "This is your lifeboat, baby. Don't hesitate to use it." From the age of 14, I worked every legal job a minor in Indiana could do. Babysitting toddlers for $12 an hour. Mowing lawns in 98-degree heat until my hands were raw and blistered. Shoveling snow at dawn when the wind chill made it almost impossible to breathe. Tutoring 8th graders in algebra for cash and Mountain Dew. Every penny I earned went into the trust. At 16, I started working evening shifts at the Starbucks off Allisonville Road. Green apron on, fake smile ready, tips stuffed into an envelope marked house fund. Every dollar went into the trust because Dad and Soline needed a heated saltwater pool, a home gym with mirrored walls, quartz countertops, and a white Lexus RX for Soline. Zephra had cheer classes, SAT prep, and a short apartment downtown when she wanted independence. I paid for all of it. I thought that if I gave enough they would finally love me. They never did. Zephyr got Disney trips and sweet 16 parties with live DJs. I got a grocery store sheet cake and a forced smile in family photos. Zephyr posted online, "Best fam ever." When Zephyr crashed her Jeep at 17, I paid the insurance deductible from my graduation money. When she wanted to live in Broad Ripple for 8 months, I paid her rent so Dad wouldn't have to touch his savings. Grandma Marceline started forgetting names when I was 15. The last time she recognized me, she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and said, "They will try to take everything that is yours. Don't let them." She passed away 3 years ago. I promised her at her grave that I wouldn't let them take what was mine. Every double shift, every skipped prom, every swallowed tear was me quietly saving up what they didn't know existed. They thought the trust was boring paperwork that would sit locked away until they decided to cash out. They were wrong. That morning, the second the clock struck midnight, the lock clicked open. The coffee had gone cold in my hand, but I barely noticed. I snapped photos of every page of the photocopied will. The red slashes across my name burned into my eyes. I attached them to a message for Mr. Pfizer. They had erased me, but I wasn't going to let it stay that way. My phone rang before I could even lock the screen. "Delaney," his voice was low and steady. "Section 7B is airtight. Your grandmother made sure of that. As of 12:01 this morning, you can sell the property today. No notice, no signatures, no court. It's all legal." I pulled up the trust portal on my laptop. Balance: $4,310,000. Current appraised value of the house: $1,350,000. I sent a follow-up text, "Send the full trust document." While the file downloaded, I opened my banking app and scrolled back 5 years. I looked at every transfer Dad and Solene said was for the family. $168,000 went to the saltwater pool and the mirror gym. $74,000 went to Solene's white Lexus. $112,000 went to Zephyr's various college funds, cheer camps, and the Broad Ripple apartment she left after only 4 months. I screenshotted every single line, dropped them into a folder called Evidence, and emailed it to myself on 3 different accounts. The printer in Dad's office still had ink. I printed 48 pages. I stapled them and slid the stack into a manila envelope. On the front, I wrote my name in thick black marker. I called Kalen Drax again. He picked up on the second ring. "Avalini Thaler. Been waiting for this call," he said. $1,280,000. Wire transfer. Close today. There was silence for half a beat. Then he said, "I'm in Indianapolis. I can be at Pfizer's in 25 minutes. The title company owes me favors. We'll make it happen." I gave him Mr. Thorne's direct line and hung up. Next, I called a locksmith on 131st Street who does same-day smart lock installations. I booked the first available slot. Then I reserved a 10-foot U-Haul truck for my personal items only. I wasn't touching their furniture, their cars, or their memories. I was only taking what belonged to me. I walked upstairs to my room and pulled 2 suitcases from the top shelf. I started with the only photo album that had Mom in it. Then I added Grandma Marceline's handwritten letters, the ones she mailed me every birthday after she got sick. Each one ended with the same line, "You are enough." I folded my Purdue acceptance hoodie, the one I bought with my own money, and tucked it on top. I added my laptop, my old teddy bear that Grandma Marceline had won for me at the Indiana State Fair when I was 7. Its left ear was chewed by our dog, who we only had for 6 weeks before Solene decided pets were too much work. Everything else in that house could burn for all I cared. I didn't want their pool, their gym, their mirrors, their furniture, or their cars. I only wanted what was mine. I carried the suitcases downstairs and lined them up by the garage door like soldiers ready to leave a war zone. I opened the trust portal again. I initiated the wire transfer for Kalen's deposit. $100,000 earnest money, non-refundable, due within the hour. The confirmation pinged instantly. Mr. Thorne texted me. Title company confirmed cash deal. No financing contingency. They'll have a clean title ready by 4 p.m. You are the seller and the trustee. Indiana law lets you sign both sides. It's done. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all morning. I walked through every room one last time. The kitchen island where Solene criticized my cooking. The living room couch Zephyr spilled nail polish on and made me pay to reupholster. The backyard pool I cleaned every weekend while they lounged with friends. I took nothing. I left everything exactly as they deserved. My phone buzzed again. Kalen was wiring the earnest money now. "See you soon," he texted. I slipped the envelope with the trust documents into my backpack, grabbed my keys and stepped onto the front porch. The spring air smelled like cut grass and freedom. The house wasn't theirs anymore. Never really was. I pulled on my favorite gray Purdue hoodie, the one I bought myself the day I got my acceptance letter. I tied my hair into a high ponytail and sat on the edge of my bed for a moment. The house was still silent. Perfect. My phone lit up with DocuSign notifications one after another. Purchase agreement, trustee affidavit, seller disclosure marked as is. I signed every page with the same calm stroke. The earnest money hit the escrow account at exactly 11:07. $100,000 from Kalen's account locked into mine. Non-refundable. The title company emailed the final HUD-1. Closing was scheduled for 4:30 p.m. same day. Indiana law allows this when the buyer pays cash and the seller is also the trustee. No mortgage, no appraisal, no waiting. Just signatures and wire instructions. I called Thorne's Lock and Key on 131st Street. The guy recognized my voice from 2 years ago when I had to rekey after Zephyr lost her set for the third time. "Need every exterior smart lock swapped today," I told him. "I'm the trustee. I'll forward the trust documents." He quoted $800 and promised a tech within the hour. Next, I called a small local moving company I found on Yelp. 2 guys, 1 truck, 1 hour maximum. Personal items only. I wasn't touching their sectional, their dining table, or the 75-inch TV they always fought over. Just my things. I opened my closet and dragged out the 2 biggest suitcases I owned. First went the photo album with the faded picture of Mom holding me on her hospital bed the day I was born. Then the shoe box with Grandma Marceline's letters, each ending with, "You are enough." I added my Purdue hoodie, all the jeans that fit me, and my old MacBook covered in stickers. Finally, I placed the teddy bear Grandma Marceline had won for me at the state fair when I was 7. I zipped the suitcases, hauled them downstairs, and lined them up by the garage door like soldiers ready to leave a war zone. I walked to the front door and carefully took down the wooden sign that said, "The Quinns Issy 2009. That was the year Dad married Soline. I had always noticed it there, hanging quietly, smiling at anyone who came by, telling a story of family. I dropped it into an empty Amazon box on the floor. It felt strange, like a small piece of history had just gone away. The title company had sent me an email with a paper called a PDF that said the house was under contract, and that it would soon be officially sold. I printed 2 copies. One I taped to the front door and the other I taped to the window next to the door. I didn't put up a huge for sale sign. I didn't tell any neighbors. I didn't announce it with balloons or noise. Just the facts. The locksmith came first. He arrived in 29 minutes from the moment I called him. He walked up to the door, glanced at the trust papers I had emailed him, and nodded once like he understood everything. Then he got to work. He changed all the locks. The front door, the back door, the garage entry, the patio door, and even the sliding glass door. All the new locks were smart August locks, and they could only be opened by my phone now. No one else could enter. He handed me the old keys in a small plastic bag. "Trash or keepsake?" he asked casually. I didn't think twice. I dropped them straight into the kitchen garbage can. It was done. Soon after, the movers arrived. 2 men in gray t-shirts came up the driveway. I pointed to the suitcases I had packed and the 3 banker boxes filled with my textbooks, winter coats, and a few small personal items. They didn't say much, just smiled politely. 43 minutes later, the truck was packed, the last box carefully placed inside, and they drove off. I paid them using the trust debit card. The money didn't feel like mine or theirs. It was just part of the plan. I walked through the house one last time. The master bedroom still smelled faintly of Soline's perfume. Zephyr's old room was dusty. Her cheer trophies sat on the shelves, forgotten. The basement gym mirrors reflected my empty form. The weights I had paid for were still stacked neatly. Zephyr had never used the pool out back. The water was the kind of bright, clear blue that made you want to dive in. I remembered every Sunday morning I swam while they slept in. Now it was all quiet. I walked slowly through the 2-story foyer, backpack on my shoulder, holding an envelope with the original trust documents in my hand. The sunlight poured in through the tall window above the door and landed exactly where we had always taken family Christmas pictures. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a clean, sharp feeling of finality. I set the alarm to away, and stepped outside. I pulled the door closed. The new lock clicked with a sound that was both firm and satisfying. The house was sealed. A white Lexus RX rolled into the driveway. The engine purred in that same smug way it always had. 3 doors opened. 3 people stepped out and walked across the stamped concrete I used to power wash every Memorial Day weekend. Zephyr's eyes fell on the red and black property under contract pending closing sign taped to the glass. She froze mid-step, the Louis Vuitton crossbody bag swinging at her side. Mom. Dad, what's that? Soline's heels clicked quickly as she hurried forward. Dad was already at the door, fists raised like he owned the place. Technically, he hadn't for almost 5 hours. He pounded hard enough to make the glass beside the door rattle. Delaney. Open this door right now, he shouted. Soline's voice cracked behind him. Baby, please. This isn't funny. I didn't answer. I tapped the August app on my phone. The deadbolt slid back with a soft thunk. I stood in the 2-story foyer, calm. To my left stood Alaric Thorne in his navy suit, leather briefcase on the floor. Kalen Drax leaned casually against the kitchen island, arms folded, black polo stretching across his shoulders. On the mounted TV screen, the escrow officer's face glowed. The Zoom window was already open, waiting. Dad stormed in first, face red and angry. He opened his mouth, but every word died when he noticed the strangers and the complete absence of my belongings. Zephyr shoved past him. Who are you people? She demanded. Her eyes darted to the bare console table where senior pictures had sat and to the empty hooks by the garage door. Where's all your stuff? Soline clutched her pearls tightly. Delaney, honey, whatever this is, we can talk. This isn't a discussion, I said. Dad finally found his voice. You changed the locks on your own family. Before I could answer, the alarm made 2 sharp emergency chirps. I had switched it to duress mode at noon. Any forced entry would trigger an automatic 911 call with GPS coordinates. Less than 6 minutes later, red and blue lights painted the walls of the foyer. 2 Thorne officers entered, one tall with a buzz cut and the other shorter and broader. The taller one looked around. We've got priority alarm activation. Everyone calm down and identify yourselves. Dad exploded. This is my house. My daughter locked us out and brought strangers inside. Arrest her. The shorter officer held up a hand. Sir, lower your voice. Ma'am, ID and paperwork, please. I handed over my Indiana driver's license and the stapled 48-page trust. Mr. Thorne slid the certified deed addendum across the kitchen island. The property transferred to Miss Thaler's sole control at 12:01 a.m. today. She is the legal owner. The officers took their time reading the papers. The taller one read aloud the critical paragraph. Upon the beneficiary reaching age 18, the beneficiary shall become the sole trustee with full power to sell, convey, mortgage, or otherwise dispose of trust assets without the consent, joiner, or court order of any other party. Dad's jaw worked soundlessly. Soline let out a high-pitched cry and swayed. Zephyr screamed, "We were at our lawyer this morning." He said, "The house goes to us." Mr. Thorne adjusted his glasses. "Your lawyer can amend a will all he wants. A will only controls assets titled in your personal name. This residence has been held in the Marceline Thaler Irrevocable Trust since 2015. Your will is irrelevant." Soline collapsed against Dad's chest, gasping. "We're being robbed in our own home." Zephyr tried to bolt toward me. "You planned this whole thing, are you jealous?" The shorter officer moved smoothly between us. "Young lady, back up." Dad's eyes filled with tears. "Delaney, sweetheart, whatever they told you, it's a misunderstanding. We love you." I looked at him and felt exactly nothing. "You love the idea of my money, not me," I said. The taller officer closed the binder and handed it back. "Title and trust appear valid. Miss Thaler is the sole legal occupant. You 3 need to leave the property immediately." Soline screamed a raw animal sound. Zephyr dropped to her knees on the foyer tile. "This is my house," she whispered, voice cracking. Dad tried one last desperate grab. "Officers, please, she's 18 now. Give us a chance to talk as a family." The shorter officer shook his head. "Not on this property, sir. You have 15 minutes to collect personal belongings. After that, anyone remaining will be removed." Zephyr was openly sobbing now, crawling toward the staircase like a child. Soline had to be half carried by Dad toward the master bedroom. I heard drawers slamming and zippers ripping as Soline's broken bags echoed down the hallway. I stayed where I was, arms loose at my sides, watching the clock on the cable box tick. 45 minutes and 9 seconds later, they came back down, carrying 3 overnight bags and 2 purses. Faces streaked with tears and exhaustion. Dad paused at the threshold, shoulders shaking. Soline wouldn't look at me. Zephyr did, eyes full of pure hate. The officers escorted them to the porch. The taller officer spoke quietly into his radio. The front door closed with a soft, final click. Through the sidelight window I watched Dad fumble with the key fob, drop it, pick it up with trembling fingers. Soline folded into the passenger seat like a broken doll. Zephyr climbed in the back seat, turning her face to the window immediately. The Lexus reversed down the driveway, tires crunching over the gravel I had learned to ride my bike on. I didn't move until the tail lights disappeared. The Zoom link from the title company flashed on the big TV I never liked anyway. Kaylin stood across from me at the oak dining table that used to seat 7 for Thanksgiving. Mr. Thorne placed the closing binder between us like a referee. I opened the laptop, angled the camera, and hit record for my own records. The escrow officer walked us through the final HUD-1. Purchase price: $1,280,000. Earnest money credited. Balance due: $1,180,000. Kaylin tapped his phone. A notification pinged on the trust account. Wire received 4:47 p.m. on the dot. I signed the warranty deed with the same black pen I used for my Purdue application. Trustee signature line, seller signature line, both mine. 11 minutes from start to finish. The escrow officer smiled. Congratulations, Mr. Drax. Recording confirmed with Hamilton County. Keys are yours. Kaylin stretched and shook Mr. Thorne's hand. Pleasure doing business. Then he looked at me. I'll have my crew here Monday to change everything over. Take your time leaving. He walked out the front door without another word. The officer stepped back inside. Clock's ticking. 15 minutes. Soline's knees buckled. She grabbed the door frame to stay upright. Nails scraping paint. Dad's face had gone gray like old dishwater. Zephyr spun in a slow circle, eyes bloodshot, taking in the empty shelves, missing photos, and the silence where her life used to echo. Dad found his voice first. Delaney, you can't do this to us. I met his stare. 12 hours ago you stood in Attorney Brooks' office and erased me from the will. I'm only doing what Grandma Marceline made legal the second I turned 18. Soline let out a broken sound, half sob, half scream. You ungrateful little... She lunged, but Dad caught her wrist. Zephyr dropped to the floor, palms flat on the hardwood she used to practice cheer routines on. This is my home, she whispered, voice cracking. Where am I supposed to go? I didn't answer. Dad tried again, softer. We can fix this. We'll rip up the new will. You'll still get your share. Just don't take the house. I almost laughed. You think this is about my share? You think I want a piece of what you were willing to steal? Soline slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. Mascara smeared into black streaks. I'll kill myself, she said suddenly, voice hollow. If you do this, I swear I'll kill myself. The taller officer shifted. Ma'am, that's not helpful right now. Dad knelt beside her, whispering promises I couldn't hear. Zephyr crawled over and curled against Soline's side like a child half her age. I stayed standing, watching quietly. Minutes passed. They moved like ghosts, grabbing purses and laptops. A few changes of clothes were stuffed into Louis Vuitton duffels that suddenly looked ridiculous. Dad tried one last time, holding out his phone. Call the title company. Tell them it was a mistake. We'll pay you whatever you want. Don't do this. I didn't move. I looked at the screen and then at him. My stomach felt tight. I didn't want your money. I wanted what was always mine, what should have never been taken away. The officers cleared their throats. Time's up, one of them said. Dad helped Soline stand up. She was trembling so badly that her teeth were chattering. She looked tiny and scared, like a little bird in a storm. Zephyr refused to look at me. Her head was turned down as they shuffled toward the door. At the threshold, Dad paused. His shoulders sagged, heavy with something I could not name. I'm sorry, he said so quietly I almost missed it. I didn't reply. They stepped out onto the porch. The officers followed, closing the door behind them. Through the window next to the door, I watched Dad open the back of the Lexus and toss the bags inside. He stood there for a long moment with his hand on the lift gate, staring at the house like it was a stranger. Soline fell into the passenger seat, leaning back as if the car could catch her. Zephyra climbed into the back seat, her face turned away from me. Dad finally got behind the wheel. The engine rumbled to life. The lights at the back of the car glowed softly. The SUV backed slowly down the driveway, the tires crunching on the gravel I used to rake every spring, smoothing it with my hands, wishing for everything to stay in place. I watched until the tail lights disappeared around the corner. Then I locked the door and set the alarm. The house was finally completely quiet. I walked back to the empty dining table. The silence was heavy but not in a bad way. It was quiet like the calm after a storm, a quiet that meant nothing bad could happen here anymore. My shiny silver 2025 Honda Civic, all paid for from the trust, rolled past my old neighborhood for the first time in 8 months. I didn't plan it. I was just taking the long way back from the aerospace engineering lab at Purdue, the one that always smelled like jet fuel and hard work and big dreams. The cul-de-sac looked smaller now. The maple trees had grown taller, their branches stretching high above the roofs, but everything else seemed shrunk. Kaylin had painted the house charcoal gray with white trim. A new black Range Rover sat in the driveway instead of the white Lexus. The basketball hoop Zephyra begged for at 14 was gone. In its place stood a sleek metal sculpture, shiny and expensive, probably costing more than her first car ever did. I slowed to 20 miles an hour without meaning to. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. 1,780 unread messages from numbers I had blocked the day I left. Zephyra had made new accounts on every platform, sending me messages with the same words over and over. "You ruined my life. Dad is drinking again." I didn't open them. I just kept blocking her. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment on Shanty Avenue, 3rd floor, with west-facing windows that caught the sunset over the Wabash River. Rent was $2,200 a month and I paid the entire lease up front. The trust let me take up to $2,100,000 for school or health without extra taxes. Purdue's aerospace program cost about $30,000 a year in-state. I paid for all 4 years the week I moved in. The rest of the money covered books, food, and a quiet, warm feeling that no one could ever take it away from me again. Dad and Soline ended up in a 2-bedroom apartment off Fall Creek in Gist, the cheap side of town near the reservoir. Every building looked the same, small and gray, and Dad had no equity left to refinance anything. Their credit was ruined from missed payments. I knew because the trust still got the tax statements every year. Dad's FICO score had dropped below 600. Zephyra quit Ivy Tech after 1 semester. She worked full-time waiting tables at Chili's on 82nd Street, wearing a black polo and forcing a smile, barely making enough to cover her share of the bills. She tried to send me money through Venmo 37 times before I blocked that too. The only person I still talked to from high school was Soraya Lumine, my lab partner since sophomore chemistry. She knew everything. She never judged me. We met every Thursday at XXX for root beer and burgers. She never asked why I didn't go home for breaks. We just sat there laughing about experiments, homework, and everything we didn't like about school. I turned left onto 116th Street, past the Kroger where I used to push the cart while Soline filled it with organic groceries I paid for. The Starbucks on the corner still had the same green awning. I wondered if my old manager ever noticed I had disappeared. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. "Please, Delaney, I'm pregnant. I need help. Zephyra." I pulled into an empty church parking lot at the end of the block. My hands gripped the wheel tightly. The message had no photo, no proof, just words. I stared at it until the screen went dark. I didn't reply. I deleted the thread, blocked the number, and drove the rest of the way to campus with the windows down and music loud enough to drown everything else out. Some doors stay closed for a reason. My 19th birthday fell on a Saturday again. I opened the windows of my Shanty Avenue apartment, letting the late May air roll in. I invited exactly 4 people: Soraya, Eric's, Eloan, and Thorin from my propulsion systems class. No big sheet cake, no forced singing, no fake smiles. Just 3 extra-large pizzas from Mad Mushroom, a case of cherry coke, and music loud enough to rattle the cheap blinds. We pushed the coffee table against the wall and turned the living room into a dance floor, a mess of red Solo cups and half-eaten crusts. Eric's tried to teach everyone the Running Man alone and recorded it for blackmail material. Soraya and I ended up on the tiny balcony, legs dangling over the railing, watching college kids stream toward Harry's chocolate shop below. She bumped my shoulder. Happy actual birthday, Thaler. I smiled, the real kind that reached my eyes for the first time in years. Thanks for coming, I said. Inside, Thorin balanced a pizza box on his head while the others counted seconds. Laughter spilled out the open door and floated down State Street. Later, when the pizza boxes were stacked in the trash and the last guest hugged me goodbye, I stood alone on the balcony. The sky over West Lafayette was the color of a bruised peach. Street lights flickered one by one. Somewhere 60 miles south, the house on 116th Street belonged to strangers who would never know the fights that happened inside those walls. The tears soaked into the carpet. The red pen marks across a little girl's name. I still carried Thaler on my driver's license and Purdue ID, but the paperwork to change it was already filed with the county courthouse. Mom's maiden name, Grandma Marceline, had been kept after Grandpa died, Harper. Delaney Harper. The judge approved the petition last week. The new Social Security card was in the mail. One more tether is quietly cut. Soraya poked her head out. You okay? I nodded. Never better, I said and meant it. She handed me a small white cupcake with a single candle. Make a wish anyway. I closed my eyes. I didn't wish for money, revenge, or justice. I wished for the version of me who used to flinch at loud voices to stay gone forever. I blew out the flame in one breath. We stayed up for 3 more hours talking about grad school, NASA internships, and the new Boeing whistleblower scandal. Normal 19-year-old things. When Soraya finally crashed on my couch, I pulled the throw blanket over her, turned off the lights, and stood in the dark kitchen. I listened to the hum of the refrigerator and the muffled bass from the bar patios 2 blocks away. This was peace. Not just quiet. It was the feeling of choice, freedom, and safety. I opened my laptop and refreshed the trust portal one last time. Balance. $3,982,000 after tuition, apartment, and the new Civic. I closed the tab. I didn't need to check it every night anymore. My phone stayed silent. No frantic texts, no new numbers begging. I had changed my number the week I moved in. Only the 4 in my living room tonight and Mr. Pfizer, who still sent quarterly statements like clockwork, had it. I looked out the window. A couple walked arm in arm down the sidewalk, laughing too loud the way only college kids can. I watched them disappear under the railroad bridge and felt something loosen in my chest. Family isn't blood. It's the people who stay when you stop paying for their lives. It's friends who show up with cheap pizza and loyalty. It's the grandmother who built a wall around your future when everyone else was busy picking the lock. I turned off the balcony light, locked the door, and crawled into bed. The last thing I saw before sleep was the faint glow of the Purdue water tower, golden letters shining like a promise I had already started keeping. Tomorrow will be Sunday. I had a fluids exam Monday, a wind tunnel lab Tuesday, and absolutely no one was waiting to take credit for my success. For the first time in my life, the day was entirely mine.